In the quiet town of Akron, Ohio, the Powell family epitomized the American dream. Brenda Powell, a devoted mother and a respected child life specialist, and her husband, Steve, were the proud parents of Sydney, a bright and promising student. This picturesque life, however, was on the brink of a catastrophic collapse. Sydney, a star student at St. Vincent St. Mary High School, had always been the beacon of hope for her parents. When she secured a scholarship to Mount Union University, it seemed like all their dreams were coming true. Little did they know, this dream would soon turn into their worst nightmare. Brenda K. Powell, a devoted child life specialist, had made her life in Akron since her teenage years. She balanced her demanding career at the local children's hospital with her commitment to her family, including her daughter, Sydney. As Sydney's first year at college progressed, the pressures of academic life began to weigh heavily on her. The once high-achieving student found herself struggling, failing 3 out of 4 classes. Fearful of disappointing her parents, Sydney chose to hide her troubles, maintaining an illusion of normalcy. She even deceived her parents into believing she was still enrolled after being unenrolled due to her poor performance. As the days turned to months, Sydney's life at college began to unravel. She failed 3 out of her 4 classes, leading to her suspension and eventual expulsion. This downward spiral was hidden from her family, wrapped in a veil of deceit. Sydney's double life became a complex web of lies, maintained by fake stories and manipulated digital footprints. The truth finally began to unravel when Steve attempted to access the college portal to pay tuition fees, only to find his access denied. Confronted with Sydney's deception, the Powells were in disbelief. Sydney, panicked and cornered, clung desperately to her web of lies. On March 3, 2020, the truth came crashing down. Steve received a call from Mount Union officials revealing that Sydney, who was 19 years old at the time, was no longer enrolled. Distraught, Steve rushed home to confront Sydney, who continued to insist that she was still attending classes. Concerned and seeking further clarification, Steve suggested they contact Brenda, who was at work at the hospital. After this initial conversation with Sydney, Steve made a crucial decision to leave the house before Brenda arrived. This decision was likely influenced by his belief that Brenda, with her expertise in dealing with emotional and stressful situations, particularly with children and teenagers, would be better equipped to handle the conversation with Sydney about her academic troubles and the ensuing emotional fallout. Brenda Powell made the phone call to the college administrators. It was part of her effort to gain clarity and understanding about her daughter Sydney's academic situation. This call became the pivotal moment in unraveling the tragic truth. As Brenda Powell sought to understand her daughter's situation, a shocking and violent episode unfolded. College administrators, who were on the phone with Brenda, heard a series of alarming noises, a loud scream, a thud, and what sounded like the wind being knocked out of someone. The call abruptly ended, leaving the administrators in a state of alarm and confusion. They quickly contacted the police, fearing for Brenda's safety. The aftermath was as tragic as the crime itself. Sydney attempted to cover up her heinous act, impersonating her mother on a phone call and staging a break-in. But the truth was inevitable. When the police arrived at the Powell residence, they stepped into a scene that was a stark contrast to the peaceful, family-oriented home it had once been. Brenda Powell, a mother known for her dedication both to her family and her career, lay brutally attacked, a victim of a sudden and devastating act of violence. The assailant was her own daughter, Sydney, who until then had been seen as a promising student and a loving child. The home, which had been a haven of family memories and warmth, was now a chaotic and tragic crime scene. In the midst of this turmoil, the police found everyday household items that had been repurposed into lethal weapons. A cast-iron skillet, typically a symbol of home-cooked family meals, was one of the tools used in the attack. Alongside it was a steak knife, an ordinary utensil from the Powell's kitchen, now part of a harrowing narrative. The evidence suggested that Sydney, caught in a web of her own deceptions about her college enrollment and academic performance, reached a breaking point. The weight of her secrets, coupled with the immense fear of disappointing her parents, especially her mother, whom she was very close to, seems to have precipitated a violent outburst. This tragic moment was the culmination of unaddressed stress, psychological strain, and the pressure of unmet expectations. Brenda Powell had suffered multiple blunt and sharp force injuries. The scene suggested a struggle, as indicated by defensive wounds and the disarray in the room. Sydney, after the attack, appeared to be in a state of shock and disconnection from reality, a possible indication of the extreme mental and emotional turmoil she was experiencing. For Steve Powell, who had left the house earlier, the news of the incident was a horrifying shock. The family, which had been anchored in trust and shared aspirations, was irrevocably shattered. The home, once filled with the sounds of family life, was now a silent witness to a tragedy that defied understanding. The trial of Sydney Powell was a highly charged and emotional event, capturing significant public and media attention due to the tragic and shocking nature of the crime. Sydney faced severe charges, including murder. The prosecution presented a case that revolved around the deliberate nature of Sydney's actions. They highlighted the brutal manner in which Brenda Powell was attacked, using evidence from the crime scene, including the use of everyday kitchen items as weapons. The prosecution argued that Sydney's attempt to cover up the crime post-attack indicated a level of awareness and intent. The defense focused on Sydney's mental state. They argued that she was experiencing a psychotic break at the time of the crime, which rendered her incapable of understanding the wrongfulness of her actions. This claim was supported by pointing to her post-crime catatonic state and the immense pressure and stress she was under due to her academic failures and fear of disappointing her parents. Both sides brought in psychological experts to support their arguments. The defense's experts suggested that Sydney's mental health issues could have contributed to a state of psychosis. In contrast, the prosecution's experts disputed this, potentially diagnosing Sydney with other mental conditions that did not absolve her of responsibility for her actions. Sydney was found guilty. The jury, persuaded by the evidence of her actions and the subsequent cover-up attempt, concluded that despite her mental health issues, she was responsible for her actions. Sydney received a significant prison sentence, reflective of the gravity of her crime. The judge, in delivering the sentence, took into account the brutal nature of the murder, the impact on the family, and the need for justice for the victim, Brenda Powell. Throughout the trial, Sydney's reactions and demeanor were likely closely observed, both by the court and the public. Her mental and emotional state during this period would have been a subject of much speculation and discussion. The 19-year-old Sydney Powell was sentenced to an indefinite term of 15 years to life in prison. This sentence means that she will be eligible for parole after serving a minimum of 15 years, but the actual duration of her imprisonment could extend for her entire life, depending on various factors, including her behavior in prison, her mental state, and the decisions made at parole hearings. The sentencing reflects the severity of her crime and the need for both punishment and the potential for rehabilitation. The story of Sydney Powell serves as a chilling reminder of the dangerous pressures faced by young adults. It's a tale of how fear of failure and the burden of expectations can lead to unimaginable consequences. The shattered dream of the Powell family is a cautionary tale, echoing the dire need for open communication and understanding in the face of adversity. In the end, Sydney's story is not just a tale of crime and punishment, but a poignant reflection on the societal pressures that can drive a person to the brink. It's a narrative that resonates with the hidden struggles many face, urging us to be more compassionate, understanding, and open in our dealings with one another. This story is a creative reinterpretation of the events, meant to engage and resonate with readers while respecting the sensitivity of the real-life tragedy. Thank you for watching. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us create more content like this. We're also very interested in hearing your thoughts on this story. Please share your views in the comments below. What do you think about the circumstances that led to this tragedy? And how might society better address such issues in the future? Your perspective is valuable to us. Thanks again for watching, and don't forget to engage with us in the comments.